What they announced last week is that they are abandoning efforts to have the for-profit entity escape the control of the nonprofit entity. You might look at that and say that's good for all of us. I think if you're have been an investor in the for-profit arm of OpenAI, you might be less thrilled about that outcome.
Hi, Jeremy. It's great to have you on the show again.
Oh, it's great to be back, Rana.
So we invited you on the show today to talk about some news related to OpenAI and specifically their business structure. So I want to start there. What exactly is their structure? Are they a for-profit? Are they a nonprofit? And has anything actually changed over the past week?
So I'll answer the second bit first. Nothing has changed yet. But what they are, and it's a little bit confusing, is they're a nonprofit entity that owns a for-profit arm. And the OpenAI company, all the employees, they all work for the for-profit arm, but the for-profit arm is controlled by a nonprofit, and the nonprofit has a board, and that board is ostensibly in control of the whole company. Now, they would like to restructure that and have been talking about restructuring that for some time. They want to convert the for-profit company, which into a public benefit corporation, which is also a for-profit company, but a particular type of for-profit company that you can create where the board of directors has a kind of dual fiduciary duty. They have a fiduciary duty to shareholders to make profit, but they also have a fiduciary duty to some sort of social cause that can be set by the charter of the organization or by the board to serve the public good in some way. For a long time, though, they were saying that what they wanted to do was have the for-profit, the public benefit corporation, not be controlled by the nonprofit. And what they announced last week is that they are abandoning efforts to have the for-profit entity escape the control of the nonprofit entity. They've said they still are going to convert to a public benefit corporation, but that the nonprofit will have a controlling stake in the public benefit corporation. You might look at that and say that's good for all of us. I think if you're have been an investor in the for-profit arm of OpenAI, you might be less thrilled about that outcome because there is some tension there between the things you might do to make sure that this technology benefits everyone and the things you might do to maximize profit for investors.
Yeah. I mean, what one thing that is interesting about this structure is the board of governors of OpenAI are mostly independent directors, and they do not have an equity stake in OpenAI, including Sam Altman, right, who only has a stake through his investment via Y Combinator. That is very uncommon and unusual if you think of tech companies, right, where the majority of the board is usually the investor constituent.
Yeah, so the structure has been very unusual. And one of the things that they're trying to do with this conversion to a public benefit corporation is actually make the structure more like other companies. So you're right. Right now, Sam Altman has no equity stake. And the other investors in the for-profit arm,
like Microsoft, right?
Like Microsoft, also they don't have traditional equity, but they do have these other things called profit participation units, PPUs, that give them a right to a certain amount of the for-profit company's profits, if it makes any. You have to remember that OpenAI is losing a tremendous amount of money right now. But if it ever makes any money, those investors are entitled to a share of the profits up to a certain capped threshold. What's going to happen in this conversion, if it actually takes place to a public benefit corporation, is that the investors would get traditional equity. If the company's value went up 1,000 times, the investors could make 1,000 times their initial investment. But also, if it declines, they would lose that amount. It's much more of a traditional equity structure.
So fascinating. So Elon Musk has been one of the most vocal voices against an OpenAI restructure, and he's actually suing OpenAI. He's been suing them for a while now. Any updates on that?
Yeah, so that lawsuit is ongoing. Elon Musk's lawyers came out and said this didn't really change anything about their lawsuit. They still feel like this is an attempt to elude, ultimately over time, the control that the nonprofit would have, that this is not in the public interest. This can, to go ahead with this public benefit corporation setup. So they are continuing to pursue their lawsuit.
Yeah. So OpenAI's mission statement is to ensure that artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity. I'm a big believer that you can actually marry purpose and profit. But I'd love your take. Like, do you think there are any concerns about this particular structure or the public benefit structure that they might potentially convert to? It sounds like this is all ongoing. It's not a done deal.
Yes. So look, I mean, there are a lot of concerns around how exactly you would marry these things in either construct. The big concern with a nonprofit has been, does the nonprofit care enough about the kind of for-profit mission, or was it just focused on the kind of research mission? And then it's always a question of like, who is on that board, right? So the nonprofit board initially had a lot of people on it who came from sort of the AI safety community. And that was the case up until a board of attempt to fire Sam Altman in November 2023. And then, of course, he was rehired. And part of the negotiations that led to him being rehired after the one weekend that he was ousted, part of those negotiations, they replaced a lot of people on the nonprofit board. And now you have people on the nonprofit board like Larry Summers and Brett Taylor, who come from much more of a traditional board background and probably can't, do have some balance of sort of the for-profit concerns and the public benefit concerns. Now, the new structure also has potential issues, as they've said that the nonprofit will initially have this controlling stake, but they have not said that like over time, if they continue to raise more venture funding, that stake won't be diluted. So yeah, I think there's still some concerns even with this announcement about what the future will actually be.
Yeah. Okay. So in other OpenAI news, there's an ongoing global race for AI. And OpenAI announced that they have a new global initiative to partner with countries to build data centers for localized versions of ChatGPT. And Sam Altman actually spoke at a Senate hearing last week saying that mandating government approval for AI software would be disastrous for the United States. So where does OpenAI stand in this global race for AI?
I mean, I guess it depends how you judge the race, but if you judge it by sort of the broad capabilities of, frontier models, then OpenAI remains sort of at the front of this race. Maybe not, but unlike when they came out with ChatGPT in late November 2022, where they had this indisputable lead that looked somewhat substantial. While I would still say they're sort of at the forefront of that race, they are certainly joined up there in a kind of lead grouping with a lot of other companies, including Google and the same thing with Anthropic. And then, of course, we have these several Chinese companies that have done some very interesting things, including DeepSeek. So I'd say they're still in that lead pack, but they're not sort of the undisputed leader that they once were, nor do they seem to have a very substantial lead if they even have one.
Yeah. So it sounds like we will continue to watch this space closely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah. All right, Jeremy, that's a wrap for now on OpenAI News. We'll be watching this space closely. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Rana.